Listen closely, my friends. Nobody tells you the truth about getting older, not really. They tell you the comfortable version. The version that focuses on wisdom gained, and freedom earned, and the beautiful simplicity of a life that has shed its complications. And those things are real. They are genuinely true. But they are not the whole truth. The whole truth includes some things that most people spend enormous energy avoiding, uncomfortable things, things that feel like loss, things that require a level of honesty that is much easier to defer than to face directly. And the deferring, the looking away, the quiet refusal to sit with what is actually happening costs something. It costs the specific peace that only comes from genuine acceptance, not resigned acceptance, not the giving up kind, the Stoic kind. The acceptance that looks at something clearly, sees it for exactly what it is, and from that clear seeing finds a way to meet it with dignity, with presence, with the specific freedom of someone who no longer has to manage the distance between what is real and what they are pretending is real. Today, 6 harsh truths about getting older, not to discourage, not to darken, but to give you something far more valuable than comfort, clarity, and the specific peace that only clarity can produce. Marcus Aurelius was not afraid of difficult truths. He sought them. He wrote them in his private journal, the one meant for no one but himself, with the specific honesty of someone who understood that a truth faced clearly is always less frightening than a truth avoided. He wrote, "Look at things for what they are, not for what appears, not for what we wish, for what they actually are." That is the practice we are bringing to aging today, looking at what it actually is, all of it, so that the meeting of it can be genuine, and the life lived inside it can be fully alive. Harsh truth 1, your body is changing, and fighting it is costing you the life you have. Here is the truth most people spend decades refusing. The body is not what it was, not at 60, not at 70, not at 80. And the specific relationship most people have with that reality is resistance. Constant quiet resistance, comparing the current body to the one that existed at 40. Measuring the energy available now against the energy that was available then. Grieving the capabilities that have changed, instead of genuinely inhabiting the ones that remain. And the resistance, which feels like refusing to give in, which feels like keeping the standard, is actually costing the very life it is trying to protect. Because the body being resisted is the only body there is, and the hours spent in resistance are hours not spent in genuine presence. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Accept the things to which fate binds you." Not passive surrender, active acceptance, the specific decision to meet the body where it is, rather than where it was. To find out what this body, at this age, in this specific condition, is still genuinely capable of, which is almost always more than the resistance suggests. The body that is accepted can be worked with, be attended to, can be genuinely cared for, in a way that the resisted body never can, because care requires presence, and presence requires acceptance. Stop fighting what is, and discover what is still possible, which is more than you think. Harsh truth 2, some relationships will end, and not all of them should have lasted this long. Here is the truth nobody says at the family gathering. Not every relationship you have maintained was worth maintaining. Some of them continued, not because they were genuinely nourishing, but because the history made ending them feel impossible. The friendship built on what you were, rather than what you are becoming. The family dynamic that has never been honest and has cost you more than it gave. The connection kept alive, through obligation, through guilt, through the specific discomfort of imagining the conversation that would be required to change it. And as the years move, some of those relationships will end naturally, through distance, through life moving in different directions, through the gradual fading. That happens when 2 people stop growing in the same direction, and some of them will end in the harder way, through loss, through death, through the specific grief that arrives when someone who was part of your world is no longer in it. Seneca wrote, "A friend is one with whom you dare to be yourself." The relationships worth grieving are the ones that met that standard, the ones where you dared to be real, where the understanding ran in both directions, where the connection was genuine rather than performed. Those relationships, lost through any means, deserve the grief. The ones that ended through natural, honest fading deserve something different, not grief. Gratitude for what they gave when they gave it, and release for the space they have now made, for something more genuinely real. Harsh truth 3. You will not be remembered the way you hope, and that is actually freedom. Here is the truth that lands hardest for some people. The legacy, the specific way you imagine you will be remembered, is almost certainly not how it will be. Not because you did not matter. Because memory is not a faithful recorder, it is a selective one. People will remember what mattered to them, what intersected with their own story, what affected their own experience. And the full picture of who you were, the complexity, the private struggle, the growth that was invisible, the values held quietly, the daily choices made without audience, will not fully survive in the memory of others. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Soon you will have forgotten the world, and soon the world will have forgotten you." He did not write this in despair, he wrote it in liberation, because the person who has genuinely accepted that the legacy is not fully within their control is the person who has been freed from the exhausting performance of a life lived for an audience. And the person freed from the performance can do something far more valuable. They can live the day genuinely, for the day, for the specific people in it, for the quality of the present moment, rather than for the review it might receive. That is not a smaller life, it is a larger one, because it is actually lived, rather than curated for a memory that was never going to be quite right anyway. Harsh truth 4. The time you wasted cannot be recovered. But you are not out of time. Here it is. The one that sits quietly in the background of so many conversations about aging, the accumulation of hours that went somewhere other than where they should have gone, the years spent in the wrong relationships, the decades in the work that was never quite right, the seasons of worry about things that turned out not to matter, that stole time from the things that did. The version of yourself you were going to become when things settled down that never quite arrived, because things never quite settled down. And sitting with that, really sitting with it, is uncomfortable. Not because the time cannot be recovered. It cannot. That is simply true. But because the discomfort of that truth is the most effective motivator available. Epictetus said, "Do not waste what remains of your life in thoughts about other people. What remains, not what was, what remains. And what remains, even now, is more than the regret about what past suggests." Because the person who has genuinely sat with the truth, that time cannot be recovered, is the person most likely to stop wasting what is left, to stop deferring, to stop waiting for the right moment, to start treating today, the ordinary, unremarkable today, as if it were exactly what Marcus Aurelius said it was, a precious privilege. The regret is information, the clearest possible signal about what still matters and what you should stop waiting to pursue. Use it. Harsh truth 5. Loneliness is real, and pretending otherwise is making it worse. This is the truth that most people manage alone, because admitting loneliness at this stage of life feels like failure, like something went wrong, like the relationships should have accumulated, to the point where this was not possible. But the reality of later life is that loneliness is extraordinarily common, not because people are failures, because the structures that used to create connection, the workplace, the school run, the social architecture of busier years, have changed. And the specific effort required to build new connection at an age when everything about it feels harder, is underestimated. And so people manage the loneliness privately, with the television, with the busyness that is not quite business, with the scroll through other people's lives, that feels like company, but leaves you more alone than before. Marcus Aurelius understood the essential nature of genuine human connection. He wrote, "We were born to work together like feet, hands, and eyes. What injures the hive injures the bee. The connection is not optional, it is essential. Not because having people around removes the loneliness, because genuine connection, the specific quality of being really known by even one person, addresses the loneliness at its root. Not its surface. The truth here is simple and hard. If you are lonely, say so. Not to everyone. To someone who might understand, reach out first, even when it feels awkward. Even when the reaching has not always been reciprocated, because the alternative, the managing of it alone, is more expensive than the awkwardness of the reaching. And the connection found, after the honest reaching, is among the most genuinely valuable things available. Harsh truth 6, you are going to die. And accepting this is the beginning of living. Here it is. The truth underneath all the others, the one that every other harsh truth is pointing toward, you are going to die. Not as a distant abstract concept. As a real, coming, inevitable reality that is closer now than it was and will keep getting closer. And most people spend enormous energy not thinking about this. Not because they do not know, because the knowing, when allowed fully in, requires a response, courts a change, courts the specific reckoning with how the remaining time is being spent. That is genuinely uncomfortable to do. So the knowledge stays at the edge, acknowledged in the abstract, managed at a safe distance, and the life that could have been shaped by it continues to be shaped by smaller, less important things instead. Marcus Aurelius returned to this truth constantly, not morbidly. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." He was not trying to frighten himself. He was trying to free himself from the trivial, from the worry about opinions that would not matter, from the deferring of what was genuinely important. From the performance of a life, rather than the living of one, and the freedom that came from that acceptance was not the freedom of someone who had given up. It was the freedom of someone who had finally, completely, understood what was actually worth their time. Here is the practice, not the morbid dwelling, the honest question. If I had 1 year left, what would I stop doing? What would I start? Who would I spend more time with? What would I finally say? What would I release? That I have been carrying. That was never worth the carrying. Ask the questions, answer them honestly, and then begin living those answers, not next year, not when things settle. Now, because the one truth underneath all 6 is that now is all there ever was. And now is still here, and that is enough to begin everything from. Listen closely, my friends. One final time, the 6 harsh truths are not the enemy, they are the friends. The specific, difficult, honest friends who tell you what you need to hear, rather than what you want to hear. The body is changing. Meet it where it is. Some relationships will end. Let the ones that should end. Make room for the ones that should stay. The legacy will not be perfect. Let that free you to live genuinely. The wasted time cannot be recovered. Let that clarify how you use what remains. Loneliness is real. Reach out honestly. You are going to die. Let that make today matter. 6 truths, all of them difficult, all of them pointing toward the same thing. The fully lived life, the life that is not managed from a distance, but genuinely inhabited every day, in all of its difficulty and beauty and limitation and extraordinary ordinary gift. That life is available right now, to anyone willing to look at it clearly, and you just did. If this gave you something worth sitting with, share it with someone you love, who needs to hear the honest version, rather than the comfortable one, Suck is Guide for new Stoic wisdom every single week.